What's going on, you guys? I am finally back with another cinema reviews video. And this time, I'm taking y'all back to the early 2000s. Now, this was one of my childhood favorites. Without further ado, let's get right into it. This is my review of the very first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie. So the story goes, Peter Parker gets bitten by a radioactive spider and gains superpowers, whereas Norman Osborn, through some scientific experimentation, also gains superpowers.
40,000 years of evolution and we barely even tapped the vastness of human potential.
What a dick. Although, I will say, yeah, this part is pretty creepy. Made you look. Here's Johnny. Anyway, so Norman becomes the Green Goblin. And meanwhile, Peter decides he wants to impress his crush, Mary Jane. He decides to sign up for a wrestling match for $3,000 for 3 minutes. All of a sudden, he gets cheated out of his money because he only pinned his opponent in 2 minutes. So he only gets $100. And so, when somebody comes to rob the promoter, Peter is just like, whatever. He does nothing to stop the guy. And then, once he leaves the building, he sees this. And I'll be totally honest, this is one of the saddest moments in superhero movie history. But it also leads to one of the most adrenalizing moments in superhero movie history. When I tell you that when I was in elementary school, in Tatum Elementary School in Farmersville, Texas, when I was very little, after this movie came out, when I tell you I was on the playground mentally reenacting this particular chase, that's how exciting it is. Like, anytime I see this movie, I still get an adrenaline rush because of this scene. Then, when Peter catches up to the guy, he makes a revelation. The guy trips, falls, and basically falls to his death. Then after that, Peter becomes Spider-Man. And he goes by the very famous saying that we all know, with great power comes great responsibility. And he lives by those words that Uncle Ben taught him. And also, being Spider-Man, comes this joke.
Change? Yeah? Big change.
Whew. Good news, Aunt May. I don't have to stuff down there anymore. Seriously, that joke really went over my head as a kid. And now that I'm an adult, it still makes me laugh. Anyway, after a long series of back and forth with the Green Goblin and whatnot, and him saving the city and this, that, and the other, the Goblin approaches him with the proposition that the two of them join forces. And being crazy, I guess, I don't know, And then the next time they see each other, it leads to this very weird line.
Are you in or are you out? It's you who's out, Gobby. Out of your mind.
After this encounter comes Thanksgiving dinner at Harry and Peter's apartment. Their first Thanksgiving at the apartment. And then it's there that because of a cut that Peter got from the bomb things that the Green Goblin threw at him, he gets cut. And so Norman notices it and realizes right then and there that Peter is Spider-Man. The internal voice within Norman, basically the Goblin, because it's basically like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde sort of thing. The Goblin tells Norman to make Peter suffer. The heart is born. First, we attack his heart. Yeah. And then he attacks Aunt May, and then later down the line, he abducts Mary Jane, and it's pretty much the climax leading up to the death of Gwen Stacy in the comics. But they do not go for it, because Mary Jane obviously lives. Peter and the Goblin end up in this abandoned warehouse, and they finally duke it out. And then that's when the Goblin reveals his identity as Norman Osborn. And I'll be honest, this scene is also pretty sad.
Don't tell Harry.
And it also leads to the only time I'll ever sympathize with Harry. And after this, at Norman's funeral, Peter gives Harry his condolences, and then he visits Uncle Ben's grave, and then Mary Jane walks over to Peter, and they talk, and she confesses her love for him, and then him pretty much knowing what he has to do says, "I can only be your friend," and then he goes off to save the day somewhere else. And that's the movie. Overall, this is a pretty weird movie, but it's weird in all the right ways. Okay, so Peter, he's pretty much the wimpiest and he's the wimpiest nerd you would ever see. And like, even when he's talking to Harry, the only friend he really has, and the field trip where he gets bitten, even then he's nerding out, and even though Harry's just like, oh, what makes you think I would want to know that? Peter is so caught up in being a nerd that he doesn't even acknowledge that his friend is being basically being a dick. But then once he becomes Spider-Man, he gains all this confidence. He becomes this wisecracking, confident superhero. He is my definitive Spider-Man, and I will fight any Spider-Man nerd I possibly can to defend that Tobey Maguire is the best Spider-Man. No disrespect to Tom Holland, no disrespect to Andrew Garfield, no disrespect to the guys that have voiced him, no disrespect to any of them, but Tobey Maguire's my boy, and that'll never change. The same thing cannot be said about Harry. Harry is the epitome of a tool. Like, that clip when Norman dies, that's the only clip I have where I can actually feel sorry for him, because he is a tool. He actually asks out Mary Jane simply because Peter never made the move, because he didn't have the confidence to. The least he could do is at least ask Peter, like, hey, I like her too. Is it okay if I ask her out? You don't. Okay, first of all, you don't ask out the girl that your roommate that you're living with has been in love with for years. You just don't do that. You are either a dumbass or an asshole. Or in Harry's case, both, as well as a tool. And plus, he's played by no one worth mentioning. So, the less said about him, the better. Moving on. Mary Jane? Yeah, she likes to play with both of their emotions. More on that later. But it would be a sin to not mention J. Jonah Jameson. Simply with this clip.
Tomorrow morning, Spider-Man, page 1 with a decent picture this time. Move Conway to page 7. I make it page 8 and give 10% off. I make it 5%. I can't be done. Get out of here!
I'm not even sure if he's following the script. I think he's just making it up. Like, he has that kind of charisma. And like, literally, when The Simpsons was making fun of this character, it was literally the same exact actor, J.K. Simmons. And Norman Osborn played by...
I'm something of a scientist myself.
I specialize in helping fish escape. Oh yeah, that's Gil from Finding Nemo, which came out the exact same year as this movie. And I didn't realize that until much later on in life, but yeah. I swear, Norman is like the Jack Nicholson of this movie. His acting is so over the top, he plays mentally insane so well, that people have even said that he would be great as the Joker. And it's not hard to see why. So, anyway, I absolutely love these characters, besides one. Okay, so I may have laid into Harry a little bit. Honestly, Mary Jane is just as bad. Like I said, she likes to play with both her emotions, and it gets even worse in the second one. Like, she basically flirts with both of them, and then while she's seeing Harry, when Peter saves her life a second time, she basically makes out with him when she's still with Harry, and she does not even know that it's Peter. Kind of bad when you think about it. And second of all, it's just like, it gets worse. It just gets worse as the movies go on. Okay, final thoughts. Well, this movie has defined my childhood, and I'm glad I got to review it. It was during the time when comic book movies were either dark and gritty and broody. This movie does not take itself too seriously. And what I mean by that is the absolute funniest moments in this entire movie.
Attacks neither body nor mind.
Tell me how!
The heart, Osborn. First, we attack his heart.
Same director as Evil Dead. How did we get here? But overall, I love this movie. And, you know, I had fun just revisiting the movie, watching it again, laughing at all the funny parts, and just... I love this movie. Until next time, stay positive and stay awesome, everyone. See ya.